My name is Chad Johnson. Welcome, everyone. I am the studio director and resident instructor at the San Francisco Center for the Book, and we are so pleased to have you all here today for the first Shelter in Studio of the year. We are pleased to welcome Luz Marina Ruiz. I have to keep letting people in. Okay, so Luz Marina Ruiz is an internationally exhibiting artist and an instructor at the California College of the Arts. Working in a variety of media, Luz transforms drawings, paintings, and 2D prints into sculptural artist books and installations. Her work is inspired by the playful and whimsical world of dreams and nature. So with that, please help me in welcoming Luz Marina Ruiz. Take it away, Luz.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Chad. Thanks for the nice introduction. And thank you for inviting me to be a part of this amazing series during such challenging times. I've been watching some of the other presentations and they're just really inspiring and helps us all keep going. So I appreciate that. I'm going to start by showing you my studio. So I'm going to share my screen and start a slideshow. I'm going to do a slideshow first. And after the slideshow, we're going to do a video of me doing a presentation of the work that I'm currently doing during the pandemic, which was inspired by Monica Meller, who taught me this technique at Mills College during one of the College Book Art Association meetings. And so here we go. Okay. So my work is based in nature. I started out as a landscape painter in the early 80s at UC Berkeley. And after many years, it became really facile and it was not challenging. It became formulaic. And I thought, okay, it's time to do something different. And there's always a transition period of figuring out what it is you want to do. And since I'm such a lover of nature and love being outside and that feeds my soul, I wanted to keep with that same theme, but less literal, less observational, and more relying on memory and dreams and shapes that keep recurring for me. And those shapes are ovals, which could become leaves or boats or other things that you could think of in nature. So I'm going to start out with drawing. Oh, sorry. I'm going to start out showing you the studio first. That's what I said. Excuse me. So here's the studio space on the left. That's 400 square feet. And the table in front is my work table. It used to be my dining table. It's 9 feet long. And it works great because underneath there, I store my books and there are tabourets with supplies. In the back, you see my flat files and also the dry mount press, a cutter, and very little much in terms of fancy tools. My etching press and my inking slab are in the common space, which you'll see in the studio. They're on wheels and I can move them back and forth. And on the right is my little kitchen. I'm a foodie. I love to eat and I love to cook. So I have to have a place where I can make my food since I spend lots of hours in this space. And so I have my office space there and my kitchen. This is more organizational stuff. I have to be organized, otherwise I can't find things. So I have these gorilla shelves where I keep things. On the very top left-hand corner, you could see a loft space, which I had built by a friend, Carlos Cartagena, who's a wonderful artist and also a great builder and painter. And so that's a lifesaver because I keep all these things that I don't use up on another level, which gives me more square footage down below. And all my little brayers that you see on the right-hand side. And this is the common space. This is one of the incredible things about this studio is that there are 3 studios here with 13 artists, and all the studios open up into this common space, and they call this studio the 3-door gallery. And this space is used for exhibitions, and this was an exhibition I put together in 2019. We also use it for workshops, for photo shoots, and I actually did a great dance party here one day. So it's also quite versatile. Okay, so now I'm going to start with my work. I'm starting out with drawing because that's one of my passions, and you don't need a fancy studio for this. All you need is a piece of paper and pencil, and we all have that at our fingertips. So the drawing sometimes is a finished piece in and of itself, but most often it leads to all my other work. And I chose this drawing because it's going to lead you into a print and then a book. So you can see the transition of how that happens, the process. This is the linoleum cut that came from that little 6-inch square drawing to this 3-foot square print. And it's not religiously copying the drawing. There are other elements that I added later because that's the beauty of it. The drawing is just a springboard and you can change things as you go. And once the print is completed, I let it dry and then I go into painting it with watercolors or gouache. I use the watercolor in the white areas for the transparencies, and in the dark areas, the watercolor doesn't work well, I use gouache. And so here is the transformation from the drawing to the print to the book. And this is a 3-dimensional tunnel book, and it's called Tierra de los Sueños, the land of dreams. And the moon is another element that I use in my work quite a bit. I've always been really attracted to the moonlight and watching the moon as it rises and sets. And on the right, there's a little detail that gives you a little more information. These pages are painted, then cut up, and then they're actually cut through so that you can see through. So they're little openings to see through to the other pages. And then from this, we're going to transition, oops, sorry about that. Sorry, into some of my paintings. At this point, this was in 2019, I was doing a whole series of little paintings, square little 8-by-8-inch paintings, having a good time with them. But after a while, I felt like I was just doing everything with my wrist and it was a little confining and I felt frustrated. So one evening I pulled out large sheets of printmaking paper, mixed up some paint in a very liquid form, more like sumi ink. And that actually came from a workshop that I took at the Center for the Book with Ann Miller. It was on calligraphy, but a very loose and kind of spontaneous way of approaching calligraphy, which is more my cup of tea. And so that's what I did. I mixed this ink and I started working with a very large, not a large brush, I should say, a long brush. And I actually wanted it to be even longer. So I taped it onto a stick. So it could just be really free form and everything coming from my shoulder rather than this tight kind of rendering thing. And that was so much fun because I just started with a white sheet of paper, no preconceived idea, no drawing. As you see, I do like to work from my drawings, but I just let it go. And that was such a revelation that you don't always have to have a safety net. You can let go. And so that's what happened. And these two are my favorite pieces from that series. The one on the left, you can see that there's some text in there. Those were done with stencils, and I use printmaking techniques. I roll the acrylic with a foam roller to get those letters to show up. And the one on the right was definitely inspired by Ann Miller with this very loose calligraphic kind of mark making, and it's the full alphabet. So it's almost like a continuous contour drawing. I didn't stop. I just kept adding the next letter over the next letter. And then when I was finished with the black and white part, I started painting, kind of like the prints, start black and white and into the painting. Okay. Then I'm sharing with you an installation that my dear friend Deborah Kottman, who I've known for over 40 years, we collaborate on projects together. We won a grant to go to Playa in Oregon. We were there for 3 weeks. And this piece was inspired by the theme of water. We were thinking about the sea life, or the plant life, I should say, not the plant life, the sea life, the plankton that migrates from the bottom of the ocean to the top of the ocean to feed the other organisms. So it's basically loosely based on that, but it's not a literal presentation because Debbie and I don't work that way. We start out with an idea and we just let it go. And the technique here, or the process, is stencil monotype, which I learned from Monica Meller, who taught a workshop at the Mills College with the College Art Association, Book Art Association. I think it was one of their conferences. And that workshop was just a different, it just completely changed the way I work. It becomes more playful, and you'll see that as we go along. Anyway, these prints range from 80 inches to about 120 inches. They're cut into and they have pop-ups and stuff, and Debbie is the master sewer and much better at cutting. So she did a lot more of the cutting on this than I did. And we look forward to doing more of these. It's been a lot of fun. And the next slide is the last slide, and I'm ending with drawing again because Debbie and I both love to draw. And this was done on our same residency. This was how we would warm up in the morning. We'd fold up a piece of paper and she would do one panel and then I would follow through with the next one. And when we were done, it's almost hard to tell whose was whose. And it was so seamless working with her because our work became just really simpatico with each other. Okay, so I think that's it on the slides. And at this point, if you're interested in seeing more of my works, I just gave you a little brief presentation. You can see my work at my website, or you can also send me an email if you have questions about anything. And now Chad will start the video of the stencil demonstration.
Thank you, Luz. While I get this started, I'll just remind people that if you have questions, you can post them in the chat and they will come directly to me, and then I will pose them to Luz after we watch the video. So here we go with the video.
Hi, my name is Luz Marina Ruiz, and this is my studio here at 1890 Bryant in San Francisco. So I'm going to demonstrate how to make stencil monotypes or monoprints, and I'm going to start out by showing you the first step is making a stencil. So these are the tools that I like to use. I like the Olfa cutters, the large blade and the small blade. Grab my blade, and I keep my hands above, not in front of the blade, but above the blade, and I just follow along the outside of the outline that I've drawn, and then I can flip this around and cut the other side of this shape. And as you can see, I have tons of stencils. You can never have enough stencils. Just when I think I have enough, I'm wrong and I have to cut another one. Okay, once the stencils are cut, we're ready to start printing. And you may have noticed that there are two types of stencils on the table. There's 4-ply mat board and then the mylar that I demonstrated. The 4-ply mat board is going to go underneath the printing process, and then the mylar ones will go on top, and I will demonstrate. I didn't demonstrate how to cut these, but it's the same principle as cutting the thin stuff, except that because it's 4-ply, you're going to have to use the heavy blade and score 4 times to get through the thickness. Okay, so then I have some cool colors here and some warm colors here. I keep my inks in these little salad dressing cups because they hold up better. I tend to run a green studio. I don't like using any toxic materials. And so the inks I use are water soluble, either Akua or Caligo. The ones I'm using today are Caligo. And so I'm going to take my brayer and roll here. I already have an ink well at the top. And then I'm going to take a piece of mat board and ink directly on the mat board. And the mat board isn't sealed, it's just unadulterated, straight mat board. I like using the white surface so that I can see the color. It doesn't matter if the back side has color on it. So there we go, and we have several that are here already. I've already positioned some of the, we're going to call these the unders, because they go down first. So they go straight on the press bed, and I have a couple of pieces of tape here just so that I kind of gauge where I'm going to put my pieces of mat board. And then I'm going to take these matrix mat boards that already have color on them on top of the cutout stencils. So I will start to place them here, and I already have everything placed so I know where these go. And once the mat board stencils are underneath, we've placed all of the inked matrix on top. Now we get to put the printmaker paper on top. And what I use is a Japanese paper, some kind of washi. There's many types. I think I use mulberry or okawara paper, different types. Okay, so this first row is ready to put straight paper on, so I keep my other supplies up here. So I will set the paper down. The other paper stencils can be done in a second run of prints, but you could also do it at this stage if you're careful. So for instance, here I have a big broad shape, so I can take a paper stencil and put it on top of the inked area. So I want that stencil sitting over an existing flat area underneath. If there's nothing underneath, then this won't show. That'll make sense in a minute. Same here. So I have a big open space here, so I'm going to take this little spiral and set it up in this upper left-hand corner. Okay, so once they're all done, we take newsprint. Newsprint goes on top because you want to keep that area clean and not have the extra ink on the edges of the mat board to print. Then, no blankets. I love this part, that we don't use any blankets in this process. We use more mat board. And again, I get this free, so you can get it from any frame shop, so it's so inexpensive. It's totally economical. These go on top. Okay, so now we're ready to roll. These are going to go through the press. I tend to just anchor them a little bit so they don't get scooted when I run it through. So you can see that the orange part is the part of the stencil that was underneath. It's actually derived from pressure printing and letterpress, adapted to an etching press. So when you put a little tiny stencil on top, that blocks and you get the white area. The first run is going to look like this from the first run that I did. So here's just two examples. Here's one with the spiral set on top of the inked surface before I put the printmaking paper down. And this one didn't have any blocked out. This is just what happens. This residual ink here is what's left over in the negative spaces where the pressure doesn't quite hit as much. So you get strong impression where the mat board is underneath. Okay, so I'm going to put these aside. So this batch here has been run through the press several times, although I think a few haven't. For instance, this red one was just solid red with a solid piece of board underneath, no cutout stencils, but just one solid piece of board. And this one has been run once, but as you can see, this has many layers. So this is when you start to put the small stencils on top, because you want to reserve things, or you want to accentuate something, you want to emphasize something. And so you play around with the stencils and find some pleasing compositions, and then when you're ready to go, I'm working a little bit reverse of what I did the first time. The key here is you need 3 pieces of mat board. We remember we put some cut stencils underneath of mat board, and then the inked matrix on top, and then we covered it with a board. But we're doing it a little different now because I want to be able to see the print and see where I'm placing the stencils. So what I've done now, instead of having cut stencils underneath, I have a full board underneath, then the piece of newsprint, and then the print, and here are 3 stencils that I'm setting, or 4 stencils, on top of this print. So this kind of leaf shape here, this shape kind of here somewhere, and this guy here. I'm only doing that with this one because I took them all off to show you. I'm not going to do that with the rest. So let's do that. And here we go. Okay, so now I like to think of this almost like watercolor. Watercolor, you want to reserve the white of the paper. So you start out with light colors and you do washes or glazes to get your deep, darker tones. So I tend to start with light colors, warms, yellows. That's why we did that first run in the warm colors. And now I have the blues set up, and I'm going to start, or the cool colors, and start to place those on top. Okay, so let's grab this, and this I'm going to place over here. Okay, so now the inked matrix is going face down because the print is face up. So we're doing the reverse of last time. And this is going to go here. I have 2 colors on here. You can put more than 2 colors. You can do a split fountain, right, with 2 or 3 colors. That's totally up to you. Okay, so that's going to go here. So now I need 1 more piece of map board, because remember I said we need 3 map boards for the right thickness and the right pressure here. So now everything will get another, this is in place of a blanket. So this is your little mini blankets, right? All the top boards come off. So we'll slide that underneath. This is the one that was solid red underneath, so there were no small cutouts. And then we put a variegated green and violet, and the green and the red make that a neutral color, so that comes out a little bit neutralized. Okay. So there's another one. A minute, but let's get this last one. Okay, so there you have it. And I'll finish taking these out in a minute. So this is the matrix left from the last run. I took all the prints off, and then I took off all of the stencils. What you get after you remove the stencils, I don't know if that's visible in the camera, there's residual ink from where there was no pressure, or you can just see there's a difference, right? So it's nice at this point to take advantage of that and do a ghost print. But you can do a few things. You can do a ghost print by just taking a fresh piece of paper and putting that on there and just seeing what you get from that. Or you could take an existing print that still needs a little more work. So here's one that's kind of light, and it could use a little more layering. So I've chosen this one here with a dark blue to go over that. But I'm blocking out some areas still so that I retain some of this original color. Okay, so then 3 stencils on here. The print is going to go on top, right? Same here. I'm taking this existing print, putting it on that matrix with 2 colors on there and 2 stencils. So that's going to go there. And here's another one that could have another layer on there. So that's going to get placed right there. So you can see these are all the stencils that just came off of the previous run. And they could be reused face up, face down, it's up to you. Let's put some fresh paper on these. I'm not going to put any stencils on these, just so, except for that one, so you can see. So here we go. The paper has 2 sides, a smooth side and a rough side, and most people like to print on the smooth side. I like to print on the rough side. I like to be different, so that's happening here. So again, these can be reused, so I tend to use the ones that match the colors. There's the yellow one, that. Okay, so now I'm going to run through. Let's take some of the ones that are straightforward. So that's straightforward. That was just the ghost with a clean sheet of paper. And let's take one that we took the ghost over an existing print. So all of that green is new from that plate. So what we've done so far today was we started out with a blank sheets of paper and the 4-ply mat board that went underneath the inking matrix, so that this corresponds to that. So it's backwards, right? I think, whatever. So anyway, that was that. and then I used a little stencil on top of the ink slab. This corresponds to that. So all the dark color was because of that. That negative space comes out in this fuzzy stuff. This was these pieces here, and all the negative space has all that nice fuzzy stuff. And then we did the cool colors, some violets and blues, and they went over existing prints that already had multiple layers on top. So when we did that set of blue prints or cool prints, we used the Mylar stencils to block out areas to reserve some of the warm color from other printing layers. And so the last series was the ghost prints, and those were with the residual ink on the board, and these were on straight white paper. So that's a ghost of that. So these three were printed over ghosts. So they already had pre-existing layers, but I blocked out some areas with stencils so that the warm colors would show through. I thought I lost a print, but I didn't even lose any prints, which is miraculous. But that's because I've had lots of years of doing this. At the beginning, I lost many, many prints. And so you just have to let them go. When they don't work, they don't work. But when they work, it's really cool. So I hope you enjoy this process. I will post this on my website, and I also will add the written instructions, because there's a lot to remember about sequence and order of boards and all of that, and the materials that you can use. And I want to thank my dear friend Lenny Levy, who's doing this video today. So thank you, Lenny, so much. Lenny is a friend of mine and my salsa dance partner. So thank you so much. I appreciate your work. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you so much, Luz. We're running a little tight here, but there are a couple questions. Someone asked what materials. A couple people asked what the stencil material is made of.
Oh, it's made out of Mylar or Duralar. It's a drafting film that's plastic, and that's why I like using them, because they are reusable. You can wash them with soap and water, and they're frosted so that it takes pencil really well.
Excellent. And then Celine wanted to know, how long does the ink stay open on the mat board, and do you add anything to make it stay open longer?
Oh yes, I do add. I don't add anything to make it longer, but the ink stays pretty wet for a long time. In fact, sometimes one night I decided to just roll up the ink and let it sit overnight. And the next day I printed it and I just got a little less juicy image, but it worked. So it can stay. It depends on, if I use Akua doesn't dry very quickly. So Akua would stay wet longer than the Caligo. But when I write the written instructions on my website, I'll explain the consistency of the ink and what you can add to the inks. It's too much to go into right now.
All right. Well, thank you again so much, Luz. This was really amazing to see your process and to get a window into your studio. So thank you everyone for coming today. And we hope to see you again next Thursday, where we'll be visiting with Mark Sargianis and his letterpress studio in Maryland. So have a great week. Thank you very much, Luz.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate seeing all those lovely faces out there. Thank you for being there and supporting me. Love you all. Bye.
Have a great week, everybody. Goodbye.